And with that, I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker, Matej Ogrin. He is a full professor and head of the Department of Geography at the University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Arts. He teaches courses such as geography of mountains and protected areas, climatology, and landscape ecology. And since 2009, he has also been president of CIPRA Slovenia, the Society for Protection of the Alps. And I first heard him speak a few years ago during a field visit in the Alpine region. And that experience really stayed with me because it showed me how great mountains can be as a context for thinking about sustainability, not only for those who live and work in these areas, but also as an example for other regions of thinking systemically and of taking environment into account when thinking about learning. So I'm very glad he could join us today. And with that, Matej, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Emma. Hello to everyone. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share our point of view on some Alpine-related topics. Especially thanks to ACS for, again, giving me opportunity to cooperate with them for several years already. Special hello to Nevenka Buketaj. Hello, Nevenka. And yes, I mean, I was already introduced, so I will not speak about myself anymore. Today, I have planned this lecture in two parts. As you can see, first part is going to be about Alpine identity in general, of course, on the case study of Slovenian, and also as a tool for sustainability. Then I suggest that we, after, if there will be some questions or after debate, we have like 5 minutes break. And in the other part, we will make presentation about Alpine School model or about some our ideas. I mean, not totally ours, because it was actually a product of one research project, Alpine Space Interact project. So about some ideas that came out from this project. And of course, we can also discuss about them at the end as well. But first, let's start to discuss about Alpine identity. It's a story that goes, I don't know, rather 10 or even more years back, when we were with our colleagues from Department of History and also our colleagues within CIPRA that was also represented before. We were discussing about what mountains mean to some, what meant in the past to some regions, to some people. What is the perception between different people who live in the mountains? So perception of these mountains, not necessarily Alps. We made also some researches and also research exchange with our colleagues from, for instance, from Montenegro, not only from the Alpine countries. And we were discussing, what is Alpine identity? Does it really exist? And of course, how can we feel it? How can we express it? And I will start this lecture with a quotation from the Slovenian Graphical Dictionary, which in Slovenian language says something like this, that national identity is the irreplaceability and uniqueness of a certain nation, which he, so a nation, perceives as a special way of thinking, acting, and experiencing social changes, administrative or political community. So it somehow describes what do we think, what do we feel, how do we see, how do we act in the mountains, or actually on some topic that identity it's based on. This was of course a quotation for the national identity. And then I spoke again very so many years ago with at that time she was the director of CIPRA International, and she said to me, you know, Matej, more that I'm dealing with this, more I have come to the conclusion that alpine identity as a phenomenon does not exist. Oh, I said, okay, so you are about to spoil our research, because we are right now digging into some facts, into some feelings, into some expert documents, how to describe alpine identity among Slovenians. And then she said, okay, so maybe we can see, when we will see us next year or next time, we can proceed this discussion on. But of course, I will now try to convince you that alpine identity in terms of Slovenian as a nation, or Slovenians, exist. First, of course, we have to go very long in the past, many years in the past. And let's, of course, when we discuss about alpine identity, we must discuss about Triglav. Not only, but many things, as you will see later on, are related with Triglav. The funny thing was already in the very beginning when we were discussing where does the name Triglav come from. And of course, I would say majority of Slovenia knows, of course, this is very logic. It's you see three heads, you see three peaks, and like three in Slovenian means three heads, and there is a peak with, so there's a mountain with three peaks and with three heads, and of course the highest one is the peak, and that's it. The science or the expert analysis is not very pleased with this explanation, because there are some documents that said that also in the old Slavic culture, from the northern Slavs, so from the Baltics to the Adriatics, there was a supreme god named Terglav, like the god of all gods. And now said, okay, maybe it was not Triglav, maybe it was Terglav, and then it was changed with developing of name of the mountain. The fact is that to the people where Triglav was actually recognized in first place as a symbol of the biggest one, usually from Trenta Valley, from Bohinj, and also from the part of Gorenska, the rest of Gorenska region, you don't really see three peaks when we are discussing about Triglav. And when we made a little bit of research of the family names in Slovenia, you have many more family names Terglav than Triglav. You can find both of them, but Triglav, it's not so common than Terglav. You find a lot of more people with this name Terglav. So I don't think that we have a final decision where does this name come from, but more and more research is actually going into the direction that Triglav comes from the Terglav as the highest one, but it was changed with the time in the peak with three heads. Triglav was first, so the first documented climb on Mount Triglav goes back in year 1778. This does not mean that people were not on the top before. I think there is more possibility that someone or many others climbed Triglav before. But of course, we don't have any data about it. So we know that first time the documented climb was done in year 1778. And if you go to Bohinj today, you will see a monument that was built by Slovenian, local authorities and also Slovenian Alpine Association to so-called four brave men. Actually, there was one nobleman, so one rich man who wanted to climb Triglav. He did, this was Lorenz Vilomicer, and he was supported by three guides, Stefan Rožič, Matija Kos, and Luka Korošec, and officially all climbed Triglav on this date. So the history reveals that most probably only 3 of them climbed Triglav, and one of these so-called guides did not reach the Triglav. But to my knowledge, the monument was built before this was known, and they said, okay, let's make monument to 4 brave men, and this is how the story officially goes. The date is confirmed. It is confirmed that 4 men started to climb it, and most probably only three reached the top, but this is not very important at this discussion right now. It's very important to know that this date was 8 years before the first ascent to the Mont Blanc, and even more interesting, 22 years before the first ascent of today's Austria highest peak, Großglockner. Maybe someone will say, yeah, of course, but Großglockner is like 1,000 meters higher. Yes, it is. But in terms of difficulty of climbing, it was at that time about of the same. It was the same alpinistic problem. So it also shows us what was actually the wish to climb, to conquer some new space, and of course to document it, because again, probably this was not the first human contact with the top of Triglav, but we don't have any data about this. Let's go on. So if we go, I said it was at the end of the 18th century when people officially started to climb Triglav and documented it. But of course, at that time, we cannot discuss about Slovenia as a nation. At that time, the idea of the nation state, of the nation identity, of nation movement was still not the case in the most of European continent. And then we have to go for another century further on. We know Austro-Hungarian Empire in the second half of the 19th century. It was already an empire where many Slavic and non-Slavic nations woke up and wanted to have some more rights, wanted to have even their equality in many terms. It is also true that Slovenians were not among the most successful ones. However, there is also one important moment when we discuss about the so-called national mountain associations, not starting with Slovenians, but starting, for instance, with the first mountain association established in the modern era. It was maybe for someone surprisingly, but in fact not. It was the first country, the first state that had Alpine association was the United Kingdom. And it was back in the 1857. For instance, Austrians and Italians established a mountain association in the early 60s. Germans, I think, in the 70s. So it was not the Alpine nations who started officially establish these associations. Why? It was at that time, this was also an instrument for conquering the new areas, conquering the new areas that were not known, that was still tabula rasa at that time, marking the space as well, bringing new names, bringing names of the peaks, names of the valleys, names of the huts. So it was, in a way, idea, especially with the UK, of colonialism. And also the big Alpine nations saw idea of establishing of mountain association as an idea of marking the space, putting the footprint there, and in a way also to enlarge their area of influence. In Slovenia, the first mountain association was established only, one would say, in 1893, so like almost 40 years later than the first one was established, and 30 to 20 years later than the other Alpine nations. However, one should know that the first attempt to establish Slovenian Mountain Society was already, I think, in 1874, and it was rejected by the Vienna, so by the official Austrian government, officially due to some administrative reason, because they wrote the name of the association, I think the Friends of Triglav, in Bohinj. And they said Bohinj as a place officially does not exist, so you cannot have such association. However, the reason was to push back the ideas. I mean, at that time, also Vienna knew very, very clear why the associations were established, and they were established on the basis of nationality. And of course, Slovenians had an idea to organize the resistance against German interest in Slovenian mountains. So at that time, it was like a reaction on this colonial idea of the German came by Slovenian, and in the first attempt, it was, as I said, rejected, but 20 years later, in 1893, it was established. Of course, this is a story for one night of discussion, and I don't even know everything, and I don't even have the time. We will now go through over some very important people who were who participated the most, that the idea of Slovenian and Slovenian identity was somehow spread to the mountains. And one of them is a very important Slovenian historical person, a priest from the village of Dove. So actually he came from Šentvid near Ljubljana, but he moved to Dove. This is a village close to Kranjska Gora. At that time, it was the biggest village in the upper Sava Valley. And he was a priest, as I already said. And he really wanted to have a Christian service in the Slovenian language. He was I would say, a strong opponent to the fact that the German language, the German culture spread it from the cities to the villages, because, of course, most of his people were normal or modest farmers, knowing only Slovenian, even Slovenian dialect. And he was also kind of angry that the Germans were, of course, I mean, since they had more free time, they were industrials, they were the noble class, they had more interest to climb of free time to mountains. This was not the problem. The problem was the huts, the path, the marking signs were written in German. So it was actually the spreading of German culture into the pure Slovenian area. And he thought at that time, it was the end of the 19th century, that this is not something that we should stand on. And he came to the idea that he must buy a piece of land on the top of Triglav, which was totally almost made idea at that time, because most of the people he knew said that this part of the land has no value. Why should one buy of mountain, even though it's a top? And he said, yes, you may be true, but this is only because I don't want anytime neither German or later on it's shown also Italian property on the top of Slovenia, the highest mountain on Slovenian area at that time. And when he declared this, there was a strong opposition among the German class in Ljubljana, and they wanted to prevent it via some process on the law, according to geometric rule, but they didn't make it. And he was allowed to own the land of the top of Triglav. And soon afterward, he decided to build a small tower on the top of the Triglav, which is still today called Aljažev Stop. At that time, he wanted to be the symbolic point of Slovenian nation, and as we will see further on, he definitely succeeded. It's really interesting, one thing, why Jakub Aljaž, as a priest, did not decide to put a cross, which is very, very, very common figure in the most alpine or many alpine regions, tops also in Slovenia. We don't really know why. There are some ideas that he already was building a shelter, like a Faraday cell or Faraday cage, and the top of the Triglav. We don't really know, but he, as a priest, at the end of 19th century, decided to build a tower, not a cross. And this is something that we should be grateful him, not because we wouldn't like cross, but because he made a top of Triglav for something special. And further on in decades that were following, not only top of Triglav, as you will see, but also this Aljažos became a monument of the, I would say, first order of magnitude of importance to Slovenians, which was very clear maybe 7 years or 6 years ago, when it was time to finally totally renew this tower or this monument. And it was brought like with the full state honor with the helicopters down to the valley. There was a discussion whether they should put it in the museum and bring a new one, but there was a strong public opinion. No, we should put it back in its original, just renew it so that it could be on the top for the next 100 years and more. And now we still have it up there. And there was also a movie made dedicated to this tower. It's titled "This Thing Has a Soul," and of course it shows the importance how this symbolic it's very important for the Slovenian as a nation. But let's go on. It's not only Julian Alps that were under the German pressure, it was also the Kamnik and Savinja Alps. And it's very interesting that it was the first known person that was against the, I would say, pure Germanization of the Kamnik Savinja Alps was actually an Austrian, Johannes Frischhoff. He said that the mountains should be led and managed by the nation who is actually living nearby. Of course, at that time, still not, he didn't recognize the idea that Austro-Hungarian Empire will collapse, but only that it should be also pleasant to the other nation. And his idea was to be this symbiotic situation among the nations, also in the nation, in the mountains. His ideologically ancestor was Frank Kozbek, and he is so-called as Jakob Aljaž from the Kamnik and Savinja Alps. Why? Because he was an initiative or initiator for the building as many huts as possible, Slovenian huts with Slovenian names. In this at the end of the 19th century, this was also so-called national struggle for the mountains, whether they are going to be German or whether they are going to be Slovene. This was like this, that sometimes some signs to paths were broken, sometimes also a fire took of some of the houses, so of the huts and so on. It was really a strong symbolic fight. Germans against Slovenians and vice versa. Also producing some new, I would say, national authorities like Henrik Thuma. He is even today recognized not only one of the founder of philosophy of the Alpinism, he also wrote very important Slovenian book. I hope that I translated it well, Nomenclature of the Julian Alps. So he was researching the names of the parts of land, valleys, ridges, tops. So etymology of the Julian Alps, knowing something. It is very important what people are knowing about the space, but the knowledge is losing, can be different. So yeah, can lose if we do not write the names down. If you write the names down, no matter, sometimes even if you write the wrong names, but this is the guarantee that these names will remain even further on. Otherwise, the problem is that people were using Alpine space, so the native people, based on the economical value of it. And people who were coming as a tourist to this space, they didn't really use these names because sometimes they didn't connect the names with the land because they didn't use it in the same term as the natives did. So this was many times mixed, or even more time the people who came, like people from town, of course Germans, they gave either totally different names. So Henrik Thuma, among many other things, also brought this book to to the world. And we can be very grateful today him that we know what was at that time names of some parts of the Julian Alps, even though that maybe it was not 100% right, but we have at least something. And it's very important what he wrote in one of his books, this quotation here, down there. He said, when I returned from the most magnificent parts of the Italian and German Alps to the quiet Zaezera or Planitza Valley, all the great Dolomite paintings faded into the background in front of the quiet beauty of the valleys. Why? I saw them for the first time, but the impressions of their beauty remained indelible. This is my love to my homeland, the essence of my spiritual enjoyment in the Alps. So it is not only love to the mountains. It is not only to the love to the mountains as alpinism and everything that gives you when you go into that, but it is also connected with your country, with your homeland. So these were for him to Slovenian mountains. So that's why we also think he was very important that he wrote important words how to establish also the Slovenian mountain identity. Again, some people like Johannes Frischhoff were also meant that Julian Alps or the mountains should not be a place for the fight against nations, especially not nations who live there for centuries and also people around. And one of them was half Slovenian, half German, Julius Kugi, who fell in love with the Western Julian Alps, and he was visiting them for decades, searching some flower that never really exists, or at least not in the way that he thought it exists, and actually was searching the whole life for this Scabiosa trenta flower. But among many other messages that he left to the world was the mountains should not be place for the national fight, but should be a place for cohabitation of different nations that have any kind of interest there. And also Julius Kugi is recognized as a very important person for Slovenian mountain, not only identity, but also knowledge about mountains and attitude toward mountains. However, I now went through several of many others or many more names who were somehow important in the spiritual and also expert and knowledge point of view. And of course, they also had some influence to the public life at that time. But this is not enough to establish the identity towards some part of the, I would say, physical geography, geographical recognized part of the region of a country. All the mountains all over the world are usually very rich with local mythology. So this is nothing special about Slovenian Julian Alps. You find a lot of mythology in many mountain areas. Why is this? Mostly because in the mountains, you have a lot of forces that are not explained, that are very strong. Many processes are very intensive, and people wanted to not control these processes, but at least to give them some dimension of understanding. That's why they have connected with some spiritual, with gods. And also they were climbing, they still climb towards the sky, because it's very often in the past that the caves are related with the hell and with the devil, and the mountains are related with the god, because caves go down there somewhere, and the caves and the mountains go up into the sky. And Slovenian mountain mythology is, of course, also very important that we base some national heritage on. However, we can say that some stories are not only related to the Alpine connected regions like Gorenska and maybe Carinthia and maybe some northern Socha part or northern Mediterranean part, but it spread all over the place with Slovenian fairy tale telling all over the, I would say, Slovenian language. The fairy tale of Goldhorn, Kekac as a film, as a movie that was actually very recognized in the all Yugoslav area, and so on and so on. But again, okay, now we have mythology, now we have some important people. There is still a long way to the national identity. When we see Slovenian national symbols, This is the symbol of the coat of arms of the Socialistic Republic of Slovenia, established in 1945. We see that there is of course, we have this communistic or socialistic mythology and science. However, in the middle, we have water and we have the shape of Triglav. And it was never, even in that time, doubtful. But this was not the first time that Slovenia was described with the shape of Triglav. It was already in the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes that, especially Plečnik, many times wrote this shape of Triglav as a Slovenian part of something. When we got a new country, many people will say that Slovenians are quite divided nation between two big, I would say, red and black or left and right or whatsoever political ideas. But there was never any doubt about this shape of coat of arms, or this form of coat of arms as representing Slovenia. It was very important that the red star was replaced with the yellow star, designating the counts of Celje from the medieval, but Triglav with water, with sea, and with as a land of water remained. And we dared to put the coat of arms also in the national flag, which is not something very unique in the world. We can find it also in the Slovak flag, and we can also find it, for instance, we have found it as a coat of arms, as a mountain symbol in the Montenegro, and also in some Latin America countries. But on the other hand, it is not so very common on the other world countries as well. And please remember also this picture. This picture was taken like two weeks before Slovenia announced independence. It was like June 11th or 12th, because they said, when we will announce independence on the June 25th, we have to put a picture from the Triglav with the Slovenian flag all over the Slovenian area where media will be able to reach it. And since they didn't know what will be the weather and also the situation on the day of independence, they did it before. That's why also this flag, it's not as it is today, because we only got flag like 24 hours before independence. So the total agreement or acceptance of all the political parties. But nevertheless, some of the political parts of at that time establishment said it is very important that we climb Triglav and we send the picture of Triglav all over the Slovenian space. And not knowing, at least me at that time, in the year 1945, when Slovenia was on the part of the winners of the Second World War II, also the partisans climbed Triglav. It was in May 45, again giving the clear message, this is now Slovenian top and this is now Slovenian space. Because before there was a Rapal border, actually almost the top of Triglav, not just very close, near to the top of Triglav, there was a border between Italy and Kingdom of Yugoslavia. What also was following in the decades later on, so decades later after the Second World War II in the Yugoslavia, was that Slovenia established a very strong connection between national sports, winter alpine sports, with national identity. It first set us on the map of Yugoslav sport map. So if like some sports like football, basketball, water polo, and so on were more somehow reserved to the other nations, we took our knowledge and also old tradition that we all had and connected with alpine sports. And we continued also this with in the new country, so in the new state. And it's very interesting how the Slovenians as a nation took all these sports, even though these are not the most popular sports in the world, as a sport that we make our identity the most on. These are Slovenian national heroes from the 80s on. I will not describe each one, especially I'm sure that who are from the Slovenia, you know very well know who am I talking about, and maybe also from the other if you follow the alpine sports. What is also very important that Slovenia managed to establish not only the sports but the infrastructure and the events connected with this sports to the level of the World Alpine World Cup, Alpine or Nordic, and Planica actually as a place. Actually, we discussed today about the phenomenon of Planica. This is the place where you have a festival of Slovenian national identity each year for 3 days. This is a festival of Slovenian flags. This is the area where sport discipline was invented. This is the ski flying. It was invented and set to the FIS court, and it was accepted some decades ago as a FIS discipline. And we have also the World Cup each 2 years in different Alpine countries, and not only Alpine, also Nordic countries. And this is something where this is the biggest, not only sport, but the biggest event anytime organized in Slovenia is Planica. And if you want to be someone or something in the terms of jet set, in the terms of policy, you have to come to Planica. Actually, sometimes the sport discipline as itself is of least importance, not in last years, because we are again one of the best ski flying nations in the world, but it was not always the case in the last decades. But Planica, we established to organize Planica within this alpine and also sport story as something that no one will say nothing bad about it, even though sometimes someone should complain about sometimes about something. So also Alpine Ski World Cup Vitran since 1961. It was a totally exotic idea how to bring Alpine World Cup into a communist country into the 60s. And some, it is always about the people, about totally mad people come to idea, we know how to ski, we are strong enough to conquer all the other alpine centers, and that's how we establish also this. Also, the Golden Fox in Maribor was since 1964. Now it's not anymore, but this is a different story. And again, the phenomenon of Planica is something that even like 1 week ago showed that Slovenia is something very unified on, it's of the phenomenon of Planica. One very interesting thing was in 2023 when there was a World Cup, World Championship on the Nordic sports in Slovenia, in Planica, of course. And this is the picture from opening ceremony, and the main song and the main intro idea of cultural performance was the group Laibach, with the idea of Triglav and song Triglav my home, Triglav moj dom. And it was for me totally new, because most of the people were totally enthusiastic about this video, but it was Triglav, Slovenia, Planica. There is no direct connection. Of course, connection is Slovenia, but Triglav it's alpinism, Planica is skiing. But somehow they brought Triglav and this song, and of course with all this performance, and people, especially Slovenian ones, were totally impressed by this idea, which is of course again how this identity comes in subconscious of Slovenian nation and goes on as something something logically. Maybe we have a new story now in Ljubno near Slovenia. The Women World Cup is growing as a place where the competition is taking place, and believe it or not, this is the place with the biggest number of spectators. So the biggest amount of people come in any World Cup of women ski competition from November till March. Come to this Ljubno, and who knows, maybe new Planica is going to be born, especially dedicated to the Women World Cup in ski jumping discipline. We have to mention for Slovenian mountain identity also one event. It was the Olympic Games in the 1984 in Sarajevo, which was given, actually, this was the last, or maybe one of the last political games that were decided politically. The political games further on were decided economically where they're going to place. The idea was, let's give the Olympic Games to the non-elite country, and Yugoslavia was one of the best at that time in this non-elite. The problem was who, of course, they have mountains, they have snow, but who is able to do anything about sport competition, especially related to winter sports? And even though they were, of course, focused in Sarajevo as a heart of Yugoslavia, which is okay, a very, very big part of organizational stuff, of know-how, of knowledge, was at that time share of Slovenian know-how. And it was also a very, very important moment when Slovenians recognized themselves to the other Yugoslav nation as a very good organizers, as the people with know-how, with tradition, with the ones who know how to deal with some alpine and winter sports. Of course, Olympic Games are also much more than that, but this was also very important. And also, first Yugoslav Olympic medal was done by Slovenian skier Jure Franko at the time. We should not forget on alpinism. Alpinism, it's also a very important part, which puts Yugoslavia on the map of the countries who were able to climb the highest and the heaviest alpine Himalayas, not alpine, Himalayan peaks and of course directions already in the 70s, from the 70s on. It was also very important as a recognition, Slovenians within the Yugoslavia and Yugoslavs among the, I don't know, United States, Soviet republics, Polish, Czech alpinists, and so on. And the biggest, so Pilot or Golden Ice Axe in English, this is actually like a grand slam in alpinism. Believe it or not, Slovenians, so if we only count the number of these awards per capita, Slovenians are among the best of the nations. Why? Because this tradition of alpinism was so much supported, mostly with the Slovenian push from the 70s, 80s on, and also the alpinists in Slovenia who climbed one of the I would say heaviest directions, not only Himalayas, in mountain ranges worldwide, are recognized as the national heroes, and we follow them. Actually, now we can follow them daily, but at that time we followed them only now and then when we got some information from these mountain regions, because it was where it was not so connected at that time. And the whole story goes again in this frame of alpine related not only sports but also experiences. The most funny thing was that if we see how the jerseys of the national team are designed, of course they are blue, green, and white as the Slovenian national color, but almost most of the sports have this shape of the Triglav. So even for the volleyball, even for the ice hockey, even for the basketball or football, you find this contour or this shape of Triglav. And this is like for some other nations, we have some other shapes. So if you see Triglav, even if it would be brown-black, this is, of course, Slovenia. And no one ever so far have discussed this, have put in some question, why the hell should the people who play football wear Triglav? No, this is Slovenia. This is the nation that live under Triglav. Again, institutionalization through the labels, through the infrastructure is something very important that gives Slovenia knowledge that we can do. And this is important for Slovenian awareness, even though that some of these labels today are not maybe as important as, for instance, was Elan skis in the 80s and so on, or Alpina skis. When we were in Scandinavia running cross-country skiing, people from Norway didn't really know that Alpina comes from Slovenia. They thought there's like Italian or some other big alpine nation label, and said, no, it's a Slovenian label based on this tradition of visiting and challenging the mountains on different ways. And then when we made some research in the Slovenian culture, it's very important to know that Slovenian first movie, the long movie, in the 1931 was not the movie about brave battles, was not the movie about brave politicians or politic moves, but it was the Slovenian movie called In the Kingdom of the Gold Horn, and it shows how people were climbing Triglav. This is the time of so-called Bergfilm. The idea comes from the German-speaking area. The idea comes from how man can conquer the nature, how he is stronger than the steep walls and so on. But it was filmed in Slovenian mountains, and it brings a message from the Slovenian Alpine mythology. For instance, the oldest periodical publication that still today exists, it's Slovenian Mountain Bulletin. And in absolute range, this is the fourth oldest periodical publication. This is not the most important Slovenian bulletin. This is not the bulletin that everyone would know about it, but somehow it has remained for almost 130 years already, and it's still there, even though many other periodical publications were born, are not existing anymore. This one is still here. For instance, also the pop culture at that time was very much related to some songs. I don't have time to go through all of them, but it's a very nice quotation from the so-called White Symphony, this one, Bela Sinfonija, in the 80s, which was actually a parody about, at that time, this was a little bit alter rock group or ethno rock group in Yugoslavia. And it was a parody how Slovenians are mad about skiing. And he said, and the first word of the youngest Slovenians should not be mom, but Erce Elan. Erce means racing Syria of Elan skis. But the problem of this song was that it became a national hit. No one really wanted to understand that they were making fun of the Slovenians, but it was so in some parts of this text was so important that they took it as their very important song. So the purpose was totally different. But the importance of skiing in the 80s, also related with the Alpine identity, was actually among Slovenian so great that it took the sense of a national identity and identity that we are different from the other, especially Yugoslav nations, not from the other Alpine nations. This is also the frame from the picture when the president of Slovenia in the time of coronavirus gave the first order of honor to the Slovenian Mountain Bulletin as one of the important nation important bulletins. And when we're discussing about mountain culture, we have also discussed about the literature, guides, maps, philosophical literature. In any kind of Slovenian bookstore you will go, from Maribor, Celje, Ljubljana, you will in each bookstore find a corner dedicated to the mountains. Even though we have some, we were very good also in some other sports, not only in alpinism, also in football, also we were European champion in basketball. You will not find as many books on other sports as on alpinism. You will find non-sport books on the mountains. And for each generation, you will find a new candidate to buy such books, even though to print and sell books in Slovenia, it's actually not very profitable work because we have a very small market. And one, least but not last thing is also to mention polka and ensemble from brother Ausenik, which many Alpine people don't really know that it comes from Slovenia. The biggest, the most known polka song, we call it Na Golici. And this person right here on the left is Slavko Ausenik. He was the founder of this group ensemble, and it was very important moment. So of course, many times before, but in the year 2015, when this Slavko Ausenik passed away, his funeral was the biggest funeral event, I dare to say, after the 4th of May 1980 in Slovenia. The 4th of May of 1980 is the date when President Tito in Yugoslavia died. At that time, this was the funeral. This was a national movement there. Everyone had to took its 5 minutes to say hello to this president, to the leader of Yugoslavia. I don't want to make any connection with this former system, but there was no politician, no important person, no any famous person from this period to the today that would be mobilize so many people that would say last hello to Slavko Avsenik. And for me, it was really at that time something unbelievable. It was like a national, yes, we go there. And it was definitely, because, when we discuss, when I discuss among students, they don't really listen polka each day. You don't hear it in Ljubljana, in the city. This is something that we know of, that we listen maybe Sundays when we go to the grandma and we eat lunch. But this is something there. This is normal for us, but we don't really totally love it. But when this person passed away, Slovenes showed how really important this was. And again, we can go further on the movies. Each generation brings new movies, and most of the movies from the mountains are in Slovenian market bestsellers. And before I conclude, I will go back in the year 1986, when the idea of Yugoslavia was actually falling apart. And Slovenia was trying to find some new identity to keep the nation together. And at that time, there was a officially brought idea up as a campaign for tourism, that Slovenia has a strong Alpine tradition. Why shouldn't we melt this into the potential of tourism? And at that time, there was a movie, like a commercial. It was taken, it was filmed, and I hope that the technique will follow my expectation, and I will show this. It was not my intention to show you how very nice this movie is. Maybe you don't really find it nice or something. What I was trying to say is that people who were making this movie didn't know that they produced an atom bomb. An atom bomb in terms of building awareness of what Slovenians are. Even today, 40 years later, there will be no Slovenian that would say anything wrong about this movie. But the point that I'm getting now is, let's make an analysis of advertisement. People will say, yes, of course, this is an advertisement of Slovenia. It is 93 seconds of this advertisement. This advertisement starts in the mountain landscape. The karst landscapes, which we, at least geographers, we say this is very important because from Slovenia, karst science went into the world, comes only in the second 20. In the 29 second, we again are back in the mountains. The sea, which is also important for Slovenians, comes only in the 40th second. Urban area as Ljubljana only in the second 53. And we finish with the mountains. So when we were looking this advertisement said, excuse me, this is a movie about the Alps. This is not the movie about Slovenians. But of course, to the nation, this was all the same. And it was, hey guys, we are for 40 years looking the advertisement for the mountains, but selling it as the mountains for Slovenian. So, and no one really anytime said something wrong with this. And then there was in 2023, there was the 30th anniversary of Slovenia. And what Google put on this Google Slovenia was this picture. You know which picture I'm talking of? I call it digital identity, of course, which is more web identity. So, okay, we should find a better word. They didn't put any other hallmark of Slovenia, which could be, of course, something else. They put Triglav with the Slovenian flag on the top. The Google. I don't believe that anyone ordered this. And again, when Slovenia declared the Slovenian development strategy, this is the web commercial for the Slovenian development strategy, a lake and the mountains. I mean, why the mountains? And now, when we go, also another vision of Slovenian development again, in the fifth second, not in the third. You see, Slovenia is a very hilly region. If you Google Slovenia in Chinese, this is what you get. Bled. I think this is Hallstatt, which is not Slovenia at all. And then Bled, and only like 7, 8 place, Ljubljana, Bled, and then seaside. So the Alps. If you Google Slovenia in English, this is what you get. And also in German and so on, we can play on. So then I, of course, at that time concluded, do we need any other idea of national identity, of mountain identity among Slovenes? Of course, we can say that there is no unique Alpine identity to the people from South Tyrol to the Tyrol to the, I don't know. But Alpines bring many, I would say, anchors for the identity. Okay, very short to now I will bring some paradox. I'm a geographer, and I wanted to calculate how the mountains are important for Slovenian land. Okay, Slovenia, with an average elevation about 150 or something meters, is only on the 69th place among the 160. So we are not high country at all. 46% is actually higher than so less than 1/2 is higher than 500 meters, but 500 meters above the sea, it's not really big elevation. Let's go further on. Only 11% of Slovenia is higher than 1,000 meters. And believe it or not, only 2.5% of Slovenia is higher, so lies higher than 1,500 meters. Even worse. So, okay, though, and if we go further on, only 0.5% above 2,000 meters. Even worse is if we go to see where Slovenians live. Only 11% of Slovenians live above 500 meters. And believe it or not, 2 out of 1,000 live higher than 1,000 meters. So almost no one really lives in mountains. So why are we so attached to the mountains? Well, our answer is attachment to the mountains or mountain landscapes is a result of activities, perceptions, value system, and positive collective experiences with mountains and mountain-related activities. So societies which live, but not only live, but also love the mountains, who really feel themselves in the mountains, accept mountains as a part of their identity, and therefore they build positive attitude towards mountains. And this is also very important as collective and proactive acceptance of mountain area as a homeland which needs to be taken care of. And this was our conclusion, that it's also very important prerequisite for taking action on environment and nature protection, because we are protecting also the national identity.
I can read, Matej, to you a question that appeared. It's actually 3 questions, so maybe you can answer it in the beginning when we get back just now. And the question is, do you also see negative points of linking a state's identity to one part of the country? Since only few people are actually live above 500 meters, maybe there are disagreements. And in how far is the collective identity with Triglav also misused by nationalist right-wing politics? So there's a couple of questions mixed here.
The first part, the first question.
Negative points of linking state's identity
I would
to
say,
one part.
Yes, of course. But the problem is that this came out of a nation very automatically. For instance, when we were making analysis of the names of Slovenian Diaspora Association, and you have like, I will make it up the name, but I will not say very wrong. Like you have Diaspora Association from Prekmurje, people from Prekmurje, Slovenian part of Pannonian land, who are, I don't know, maybe in Germany, maybe in Italy, maybe in Canada, I don't know where, and they put it the name Triglav. They didn't put it the name Mura, which is the biggest river. So yes, this could be, of course, also the misusing of this symbol, and also the neglecting the importance of other regions. But as we see it, but this is quite a long story to discuss about. There are many books written about this, much more in-depth research that I was able to represent right now. But actually, seeing Triglav something as a very important, sometimes we got the feeling that further from Triglav you go, more it is important as an anchor. Also from Dolenska and Primorska region and so on. So maybe it's of least importance for the people who live just under the Triglav. So yes, it could be, but as long as it comes from the, I would say, nationwide, of course, you don't really have to go far for nationwide as far as Slovenians are concerned, since we are only 2 million. It somehow, for the last century, was very much put into the, I would say, symbolical space of Slovenians. Misusing in the political terms, yes, this could be a case, but I'm not sure. I mean, I would dare to say that for the both sides, you have so-called Slovenian peak on Slovenian peak. So Slovenian peak in terms of politician and economical, they go each year, they climb Triglav. I don't know if they still do, but symbols could be misused, of course. Sometimes, I'm sure, I don't really know any example that I could describe right now, but I'm sure that also the mountains were misused. But I wouldn't be so brave to put it only on the one part of the political side or pole or whatsoever. But yes, all the symbols could be misused, and but I don't. So to be honest, I didn't really work very much research on how many times and in which way it was misused. But yes, it could be misused, and like many other symbols. So in the second part, probably shorter, the idea was it was some kind of coming together in the year 2016. We got the opportunity to join the project Your Alps, that were discussing about how to bring closer mountains, things related to the mountains, mountain-oriented education to the young generation. And also connected with the education of so ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, and other sustainable goals. Here will be the project and also our experiences. So as I said, the background of the project was the mountain ecological systems, of course, are of high importance. for the global ecological systems. The Alps are the water tower of Europe and an indicator for many environmental changes and so on and so on. But the problem is, we were discussing about this identity like 20 minutes ago, but it's not necessarily that the young generations will maintain this identity. So things are fluid and things change. And we know our starting point was that the young, and not only young generations, are losing contact also with nature. Why? Simply because more and more people live in the city. So urbanization is growing. And also people who live in the land, most of them live actually urban or suburban way of life. So we are not farmers and losing directly from the nature anymore. And we face increasing disconnection between youth and mountain environment, also lack of alpine natural and cultural heritage, and at the end, least but not least, also eventual loss of alpine identity. So, and then we combine this idea, of course, with the ESD and environmental education ideas. And the idea was to prepare the basis for MOE, so mountain-oriented education, which emphasizes or gives the focus on the interrelations between mountains, regions, and society. What are mountains? What they bring us? Is this only the polygon for sports or something else? First, what is very important when we go to the mountains is that we give all the free space to so-called kinesthetic information. This is what we were told on the first workshop. Of course, we all somehow know this, but when we decided that we will start also to teach about mountains, of course, we have to be even more careful. So, so-called activation of senses. See the mountains, if you want, smell the nature, taste it somehow, maybe to challenge yourself in way of sport or some activity. Here, if you want the mountains, again, touch, play. So you really need to give many different forms or ways how to activate all the senses. And of course, the baseline is kinesthetic information. Let's move. Don't only see it through the window of the bus. Don't only see it through the window of the cable car. Don't only sit on the cableway, but let's go, let's move, let's play, let's sleep there, let's eat the food comes from the Alpine. So let's give the Alpine space the opportunity with all the possibilities to come to your experience. Spatial experience from the mountains has to be, of course, positive. Now, so it's not very important how nice picture is, how nice music you hear. The whole experience must be something very good, must be something positive, and must be something that actually never ends. It goes deeper and deeper. We were discussing and reading papers about people who were, of course, very good sportsmen in the teenagers' time, then were very good alpinists, and they were very good educators. At the end of their I would say lifetime, or the second half, they were more sitting, visiting, maybe also having some cultural dimension of or writing about the Alps. But once get in touch with the mountains, and once you develop your attitude to the mountains, it's very important that this experience goes like a spiral, further on, more deeper and deeper, more complex, and that really gives you a better understanding. The problem that we were facing and that we were warned when we started to discuss about, especially from the experts from the field of psychology, is that mountains must be presented to the way that the youth understands. 10 years ago, it was already this idea of digit devices that were all over the place. And we know many ideas that when I will have my field work, I will take children into the mountains, into the Alpine Valley. I will not allow them to have their any kind of devices. Somehow we came to the conclusion that this is not probably the best idea, because experience of all the generations, of course, is welcome. But the mountains for the young generations today are seen by their eyes different as they were seen with our eyes 50, 40 years ago. The world simply became older for 40 years. And idea that we know everything how to feel about the mountains, because we went once through this process, is very, very wrong, because our acceptance in 1980s or 1970s or 1990s was totally different as it is today. So first, we had to learn that experience of all the generations is very welcome, but mountain-oriented education is actually a two-way process. When we start to not educate, but give our way of seeing or experience to the mountains, at the same moment, we have to teach attitudes toward mountains and the way that other younger generations see, and we have to also teach and remember this and accept this. If we will only sell our vision of the Alps several decades ago, we will probably lose even more listeners. What's also important when we go outdoor, it's also important so-called visualization that really helps to experience the real outdoor activity. Very, very dangerous. There is a possibility of misunderstanding of alpine landscape if we, as I said, miss the activation of all senses, and if we only follow the digital communication. So this is actually a little bit introductory, a little bit contradictory, as I said before. But as very old song already says, the sun always shines on TV, and what you see via internet, via any commercial presentation, it's not actually necessarily what you feel and how you will feel when you will climb this mountain, when you will make powder skiing, when you will make fishing, when you will make swimming, whatsoever. So it's also very important to discuss, especially with teachers, in what weather we go out. Of course, the first axiom is we only go out when there is 100% safe condition. But this is not what we are talking about now. Especially in Slovenian schools, turn out, I have experience actually each year, that there is no sport day, there is no any natural science day, if there is a possibility of slight shower during during the hours when students or teachers or pupils will be outside. And I got phone calls, what will be the weather on next Wednesday when we have such a day somewhere in Dolenska region? And I said, go out. You will discuss about weather later. You will discuss about how to adapt the weather. But for instance, in Scandinavia, we were taught that they go out actually no matter weather, because they also learn how to see the nature-related processes, when most of these processes are very active, with raining, you cannot see a rainbow in the nature if you don't go out in the rain, or when the rain is close enough to you that in the combination with this happen. So don't go out only in the sun weather, because of course you will have beautiful views, and it's nothing wrong. So it's nothing wrong if you go out in the sunny weather, but don't wait only sunny weather to come. Usually, especially in the sunny weather, youth is more willing to play. And you know how they say what youth does. They always look the curves when we adults say that we have to go straight, and they will definitely go straight when we will say you have to use all the curves. But this is what the youth is all about, isn't it? So let's give them play. Let's give them bring even the most, for our way of thinking, stupid ideas, but this actually brings the oxygen in not only in our experience, but also in our relations. But as a geographer, as someone who really looks also to the process in nature, we have to be aware that if we go out only in the sunny weather, we will see the minor part of natural processes, and many of them are of very small intensity. Of course, that's why the sunny weather is usually also safer. But as I said already, also in the bad weather or so-called bad weather, we can find very, very safe conditions. And many processes are hidden away from the sun, especially if also we can go out during the night to see the mountain landscape during the night. Or we can go out during the heavy rain, during the snowy episode, which are of course so less frequent, but they can see many other processes, how the snow line is descending, how the small stream becomes a torrential stream, how then they will understand what we are saying in our geomorphology classes, that 80% of all materials from the Alps is brought by 10% of the precipitation event. So it is not proportional. For instance, and they will learn how streams are born in heavy rain. So how snow cover can form within several hours, they will see in front of their eyes. So-called faces of nature. And if we are a little bit romantic, they will discover the hidden beauty of the nature that is most time very close to us, but we don't see it because we only wait the sunny weather to come. And we are afraid of, I don't know, precipitation. Sometimes they can discover their limitation. I was out there on the -40 and I'm still alive. For instance, of course, you have to prepare them before. They go up in the mountains and they dig the thermometers out of snow because there was like 3.5 meters of snow already in December, and so on and so on. But we are losing all these moments of nature because we are only staying in so-called safe mode outside or outdoor conditions. And of course, even the rain has its symphony, even the wind has its melody, but you will not hear it, of course, if you are at home at that time. I say, let's go out no matter weather, and then we will decide at the latest moment if, for instance, some things are even not to go there, but in 90% of time, we can still go somewhere, at least somewhere. And then we will start to love nature as just as it is. So don't really wait that the sun will shine on TV. Let's go out. And maybe sometimes we can also have the sunny weather, by the way, but even better. I always say to my students when we go at the end of May in the mountains, and usually we get hit by some showers or rain. And of course, they are a little bit wet at that time. And I said, have you ever heard people from Arabian Peninsula saying it was a very nice sunny day? Usually they don't, because they have 360 sunny days per year. So you only appreciate sunny weather when you have experienced the rainy weather. But also you can start to, I would say, love or appreciate the moments in the rainy, cloudy, windy weather. And as this song says, in the rainy, cloudy, windy weather. And as this song says, we can finally understand the colors of the wind, and that hidden secrets of nature reveals us that nature is beautiful and perfect in any kind of condition. As we geographers usually say, there is no bad weather, there are only bad prepared geographers or inappropriate prepared geographers. And this is something that we had to make it very clear also with other members in the project, what is actually when conditions are appropriate to go out. And that especially in the I would say southern part of Europe, we somehow lost this competences and also the skills that especially in Scandinavia, as we were told, are still taking place. So, and just a few more slides. From these starting points, we prepared some Alpine school models, something that should give some ideas how to teach the Alpine-related topics, how to bring, not teach, how to bring these topics in the frame of ESD, in the frame of sustainable, so SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals, and of course, into the frame of prepare the young generations for the 21st century. There are so-called 7 steps. First, of course, we discuss about who. It's very important that we combine not only formal, but we have to think about very strong role, very strong potential about informal education, like scouts, like forest schools, like mountain associations, like I don't know who else is doing anything related with the outdoor activities, of course, close to the mountains. We should build allies and we should build some cooperation, because together we know the most. And schools are some established infrastructure, but many informal education organizations have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. They're also much more free to think. Because the school system, it's especially in Slovenia, sometimes very rigid and doesn't really allow a lot of curves when you have to go straight, or straights when you have to take curves, and that's why you need some oxygen into this process. When we discuss about what, we have to define key topics of sustainable development. It's not so hard to find them. It's much harder to define the most important for your project, related with your school, with your region. So again, you need local stakeholders that will tell you maybe that, I don't know, in Planica, idea about Olympic Winter Games is not at issue because Slovenia, it's not so interesting, like for instance, Northern Italy or maybe in France. But we have some other related topics that we can build on. It's very important not only provide interdisciplinary field with formal and informal, but also within the formal education, especially within the schools, within the different topics, biology, history, language, so like Slovene or English, and so on, also physics, chemistry, so that we sell the, I would say, Alpine related story, not geography in the Alps, not history in the Alps or something else. We have to discuss about values. Sustainable development, it's very wide topic again. And not all the values are of enough importance or of the same importance in the different parts of the Alps or of also in the Slovenia. So you have to discuss with them, encourage learners to evaluate the baseline values and also to see the baseline knowledge. It's also very important. To define the competences again, how much skills, as I already said. Compare them with competences also in the different aspects of sustainable development. I already mentioned interdisciplinary approach. So within the one system, which is of course given in one country, one region, in one state, for instance, have to find a way how to come as close as possible, not only with thematic links, but also with the formal process, because the legislation is not the same about who is allowed to teach, when is allowed to teach, how is it possible to prepare common projects, and who is allowed to do it, and so on. But this is more administrative way, which is also important, but maybe not so much in the terms of content. Which methods to take? Of course, many people who work in this education process, they are very well skilled in many different methods. Somehow we had suggestion to take a learner-centered approach, so that we go towards the learner, towards our target public as much as possible, to be a part of their world of understanding, and me as a lecturer at that time to get as close as possible and to represent ourselves as one of them. Maybe only in the process of this learning process or teaching process, but still it's very important that we bridge these gaps. That could be of cultural aspect or language, or maybe also, since we are maybe already too old for young generation, that they could feel free beside us, and so on. And of course, include as much as possible outdoor learning activities. Let's go out. Don't only see how the things out are looking. So don't, of course, yes, prepare ourselves via digit media, via internet, via YouTube, via movies, via experiences from me as a teacher. We have some photos from the last our experiences, and say, yes, this you will see this, but go as soon as possible out there and stay as long as possible there, because and of course, let's do our best to bring the positive experience from all the process. And of course, let's go in action, stay in touch with your local stakeholders, bring some new ideas, meet with different stakeholders at least once per year, and so on, and bring this alpine community in the wider scale. But okay, this is more the idea afterwards when things are taking place. So as you can see, I was really fast within the second part. I hope I was not too fast. Thank you for your attention, and thank you to ACS to giving me opportunity to being a part of your this whole teaching program about the mountains.